Hello there, and welcome to a discussion that has been going on for quite some time in the One Piece community. Is Zoro equal to Luffy, and can he defeat his opponents? We will analyze both of these questions in this video. There are 5 rules that I am going to be following while making this video. They are: for every fight, the version of Zoro that is going to be used will be similar to the version of his opponent. This means that a future version of Zoro won't be considered for a previous version of the opponent. For example, I'm not going to be making the King of Hell Zoro fight against Alvida or something like that. Rule number 2 is that Zoro is going to have the same saving conditions as Luffy had in this fight. For example, Zoro is going to be saved by Robin after his loss in Alabasta, similar to Luffy. Any saving condition Luffy had in his fights, Zoro will have that too. Number 3, which is the most important rule, I'm not going to be taking data books into consideration while making Zoro fight against Luffy's opponents. This is due to them being wildly inconsistent and prone to constant misinterpretations. For example, Luffy and Zoro are stated to be equal in data book Yellow Grand Elements, which is released in 2007 and covers up to Enel's lobby. But this is really up for debate, as it doesn't specify if Zoro is always equal to Luffy or if Zoro eventually becomes Luffy's equal after training between 2 arcs. As Zoro said in Enel's lobby, everyone in the crew grows stronger as they pass by each island. Number 4 is Zoro is in the same health condition as Luffy would be in canon, so Zoro won't be nerfed during his fight. For example, the Zoro who would fight Kaido will be a fully healed Zoro. Just think of this rule as me switching the situations of Luffy and Zoro. So when Zoro fights Kaido, Luffy will fight King or something like that. But the focus of this video isn't Luffy, it's Zoro. Number 5 is I won't be counting fodders like Marines or something like that, as Luffy literally defeated 50,000 fishmen, and I'm not giving that feat to Zoro. Now, with these 5 rules in mind, I am going to be as unbiased as possible by giving you guys facts in this video. So without any further ado, let's get started. So the first opponent that Zoro faces in this matchup is Higuma, the mountain bandit with an 8 million berry bounty. In the anime, Higuma was introduced in episode 4, but in the manga, he was the main villain of chapter 1 and Luffy's first fight in the series. The Zoro we are going to be using for this fight is just one from his childhood, training in his dojo to defeat Kuina. Now, will Zoro win? Kind of. While Zoro has defeated adults while he was just a kid, Higuma is no slouch. He has an 8 million berry bounty, meaning that he is a threat according to the world government. Plus, he has killed people, so even that is considered in this fight. The victor is Zoro, as Higuma has not shown any combat experience like Zoro has. Plus, Zoro trains and defeats adults, so Zoro likely wins. The second fight is the fight between Zoro and Alvida, resulting in Zoro coming on top. Nearest version of Zoro that can be taken is the one where he beats up Helmeppo and cuts down the dog. Zoro has shown more skill than Alvida, plus Luffy one-shotted her. Zoro could also do the same with his 3 swords. Number 3 is Zoro versus Captain Morgan, leading to Zoro winning, as Zoro was the one who took on Captain Morgan in the original anyway. It doesn't change here either. In fact, he might be able to finish Morgan faster than Luffy due to his nature. Number 4 is Zoro versus Moji and Richie of the Buggy Pirates. Zoro isn't injured here and has enough attack potency to destroy both Moji and Richie. I will count them as one though, as Moji's ability is to control animals. 5th is Zoro versus Buggy, and this is where Zoro faces his first loss in this video. We already saw how this fight went at canon. Zoro lost badly. Even if Zoro knows how Buggy's devil fruit works, Zoro is absolutely ineffective against Buggy. Even if Nami helps Zoro by tying up Buggy's body, Zoro doesn't have the pure force to send Buggy across islands like Luffy can. Plus, even if he uses the blunt side of his blade, Zoro will be overpowered. So eventually, Buggy frees himself and wins his fight against Zoro. Number 6 is Zoro versus Kuro. This is an interesting matchup, as while Zoro cannot catch up to Kuro's combat speed, Luffy won against Kuro by using the momentum of Kuro charging his attack to his advantage, something that Zoro would also be able to do as he figures it out. Eventually, Zoro would win, but it wouldn't be an easy fight. Number 7 is Zoro versus Don Creek, which is a matchup that has no proper outcome. While Zoro is a great contender to many of Krieg's weapons, Zoro doesn't have the means to completely overpower Krieg. All Zoro had were Wado, Ichimonji and 2 normal swords. This is not even counting the fact that Zoro does not have the ability to cut steel at this point, especially with Krieg's armor being made of wood steel. For those who think that Zoro could target Krieg's weak points, Krieg isn't an idiot. He has a physical strength to lift a 1-ton battle spear single-handedly. And even if Zoro gets a gas mask for the poison marks, Zoro does not have any way to get through Krieg's armor, leading to his loss as the fight stretches out. Number 8 is Zoro vs Arlong, which is not even a debate, as Arlong takes this dub easily. While Arlong was shocked at how Zoro survived his wounds he received from Mihawk, Zoro does not have the physical capabilities to hold down Arlong. It took a building destroying level attack to put Arlong down, something that Zoro has not shown capable of at this point. Number 9 is Zoro vs Smoker. This is literally a massacre. Zoro does not even have anything remotely harmful for Smoker to be careful about. Smoker destroys Zoro so badly, it's not even a debate. Number 10 is we come to Whiskey Peak, where Zoro fights himself. Well, I did say that Zoro and Luffy switch places. This video is about Zoro fighting Luffy's opponents, and in Whiskey Peak, Luffy fought Zoro due to a misunderstanding. This fight is like fighting a mirror but is interrupted by Nami, so it is the first draw of this matchup. Number 11 is Zoro vs Zoro, but it was interrupted by Miss Valentine and Miss Fi of Baroque Works. But both of them get one-shotted by both Zoro, so I give this win to Zoro. Number 12 is in Little Garden. Zoro fights Mr. 3 while his crew members are all trapped in a wax-made birthday cake. This fight is pretty interesting as Zoro does not have the proper way to defeat Mr. 3. This is considering Mr. 3's armor being as strong as steel, which Zoro does not even know how to cut at this point. Not only that, Zoro does not have any wacky abilities of Luffy, so he won't be able to even free his crew like Luffy did. Mr. 3 has enough intelligence to seal Zoro in place with his axe, forcing him to lose. Zoro vs Wapol is another interesting fight, as while Zoro easily wins this similar to how Luffy did, it would be interesting to see Wapol trying to eat Zoro's sword while Zoro being pissed about it. Number 14 is Zoro vs Crocodile, which is an absolute massacre. Even if Zoro fights Crocodile all 3 times like Luffy did, he doesn't have nearly as much of a chance as Luffy did. Because in his first fight, Zoro gets violated badly similar to Luffy. And even if Zoro did figure out Crocodile's weakness, he might be able to coat a sword with water or something like that, which wouldn't really change much, as in their second match, Crocodile would fight against a Zoro who knows to cut steel. But while this Zoro would fare much better than fight one Zoro, he doesn't have Luffy's body, so he would be drained of moisture and he doesn't have any way to save himself. Now, the third fight is very interesting, as Zoro could cut off Crocodile's poison hook, which would make him last much longer than Luffy. But he does not have the destructive capability of Luffy, who was able to shatter steel in East Blue and grew stronger from there. While this fight would be a mid to high diff, Crocodile would ultimately win. Number 15 is Zoro vs Bellamy. This is not a debate at all. Zoro violates Bellamy like Luffy did. No contest. Number 16 is Zoro vs Satori, which is an interesting one since Zoro does not have his Bound Phoenix attacks. But with the help of both Sanji and Usopp, Zoro will still win this fight like Luffy did. Number 17 is Zoro vs Viper, which is another interesting one, as by this point, Zoro has learned how to do wind slashes. Both Luffy and Viper were equal to each other, but their fight was interrupted by a giant python. This will happen similarly here, and as even though Zoro has Bound Phoenix, Viper's arsenal is insane, leading to a second draw. Number 18 is Zoro vs Enel. I mean, do I need to answer this question? Like, this matchup has already happened and Zoro got absolutely violated. And even if he fights this time, he will get violated once again. Number 19 is Zoro vs Foxy, which is an interesting one once again. So, Foxy is a really good counter to Zoro if you think about it. He could freeze Zoro before Zoro could execute his attacks, whereas Foxy was able to keep up with Luffy's speed, which is really impressive. This is one of those matches where Luffy would fare much better than Zoro, as Luffy has a rubbery body, negating much of the physical damage that Foxy deals. Zoro would not have this advantage. And honestly, this is really debatable, as Foxy is smart enough to make Zoro fall into his traps, while Zoro is strong enough to negate a lot of Foxy's moves. I'll call this a debatable match though, because we can debate it if you guys want. Number 20 is Zoro vs Aokiji, which doesn't even deserve a single second of conversation. 21 is Zoro vs Usopp. It's a boring conversation. By this point, Zoro has already decided to leave Usopp out of his crew, and he would not have the mental conflict that Luffy had. As Luffy defeated Usopp, Zoro would also defeat Usopp. Number 22 is Zoro vs Frankie, which is a weird fight, as it was interrupted by the arrival of Galila Company. While Frankie has high attack power with Kode Vent, with at least somewhat equal to Luffy in their fight, I think Zoro is capable of taking this dub, but it is still a difficult fight. And unfortunately, it would be interrupted by the Galila Company, leading to a draw. Number 23 is Zoro vs Lucci. Fight 1, just really going exactly as it is in canon. Zoro being thrown away like a rag doll. Number 24 is Zoro vs Blue Eno, which is like a high to extreme diff fight with the winner being Zoro. Because while Zoro counters Buleno, he doesn't have the attack power to go through Tekai yet. If Buleno uses his pocket dimension, it might give Zoro some trouble. But would he lose? Nah, he'd win. Luffy kind of dog-walked Buleno by speed blitzing him, and Zoro does not have the speed to do that yet, as he doesn't have Asura. This is why this is a high diff fight at minimum. Zoro vs Lucci is the 25th match, as it is round 2, which is an absolute massacre for Zoro. Even with Asura, Zoro does not have the endurance nor the destructive capability to contend with Lucci. Zoro would be incapacitated immediately by getting hit with a Rokugan from Lucci. Luffy himself states that all of his crew will die if he doesn't face Lucci personally. Fight number 26 is Zoro vs Oars. This is a pretty difficult fight to place, as Oars was only defeated due to Luffy's damaging him with his nightmare form, eventually breaking Oars' spine. Zoro, while still getting his crew help like Luffy did, would not be able to destroy Oars' spine, since Zoro does not have the destructive capability of Gear 3 Luffy, making him lose this battle. Number 27 is Zoro vs Gecko Moria, which is an absolute massacre. Without the speed of Gear 2 and the strength of Gear 3, Zoro does not stand a chance against Moria, even if he used Asura. Number 29 is Zoro vs Pacifistas, which is still a win, as he has the support of himself and Sanji. Plus, this is a healed for Zoro, so this fight won't really change much. Number 29 is Zoro vs Sentomaru, which is a disaster of a fight, as even though Zoro is fully healed, his defense is not capable of surviving an emission attack of advanced armored Haki. This fight forces Zoro to either lose or be distracted by the arrival of Kizaru. Either way, Zoro doesn't win. I'll count this as a loss. Number 30 is Zoro vs Kuma, which goes similar to his canon fight, as Zoro does not have anything to permanently hurt Kuma. This would lead to his loss and the distribution of the crew across the world. Zoro would be sent to Amazon Lily instead of Luffy, so he would have to fight his 31st battle with both of the Boa sisters, Marigold and Sandersona. Since from here on out, Zoro isn't really in the story until the time skip, we need a replacement Zoro. So I will be choosing a Zoro who fought against the copy monkey on Mihawk's Island. This is the initial fight though, not the Zoro which defeated all of the monkeys. Since I personally believe that the one-win version of Zoro is equal to pre-Impel Down Luffy. This fight will be really interesting, as it's similar to the fight between Luffy and the sisters. Zoro would handle most of their attacks, and while he isn't as fast as Gear 2 Luffy, Zoro would be able to overpower them, leading to his victory, though the fight would be close. Now Zoro is inside of Impel Down thanks to Boa Hancock. Now he has to go through all 5 levels to save Ace. Why save Ace though? Well, Zoro is him, that's why. In Impel Down, he fights many people like the Blue Gorillas, Sphinx, Minotaurs, etc. But the important fight is the 32nd fight, Zoro vs Magellan. This fight is an absolute massacre. Zoro genuinely dies here. Match number 33 is Zoro vs Hannibal, one of the Wardens, which is another interesting fight. Hannibal has insane endurance, surviving hits from Gear 2 Luffy, so it's difficult for Zoro to put him down. But it is interrupted by Blackbeard, so I will say that this fight is a debatable match. Number 34 is Zoro vs Blackbeard, which is an absolute massacre, as Zoro does not have anything to damage him like Gear 2 Luffy can. Zoro will lose badly. Number 35 is Zoro and Magellan, a rematch, but this time he has Mr. 3 as support. But this really doesn't do anything because the entire fight was a distraction for the escape from Impel Down. So I'm making a new counter for this from here on out, named Distraction Fights. Zoro arrives on Marineford, which is a literal hellhole for Zoro, as just like Luffy. He fights many people like Giants, Hina, Kizaru, etc. But the only fights that will count though are number 36, Zoro vs Smoker, where he loses just like Luffy. Honestly, at this point, except for Kobe, Zoro loses to everyone. So, number 38 is his fight against Kobe, which he wins. He fights against Kizaru, he loses. He fights against Aokiji, he loses. His fights against two Vice Admirals, he loses. He loses to Kizaru once again. Zoro would even lose to Garp, but I'll give him that win because I love Zoro. Zoro loses to Sengoku's attacks as he does not have Luffy's gummy powers. And at this point, he loses to everyone and anyone due to being way too outclassed. He even loses to Jinbe out of the water so because pre-times Zoro is that weak in Marineford art.
The time skip happens. Zoro has 16 wins, 26 losses, 3 draws, 2 debatable fights and 1 distraction.
The time skip happens and things somewhat change. The 39th fight is Zoro vs Pacifista, which is an easy win for Zoro as Zoro is much stronger compared to his pre-time skip version which defeated a Pacifista. Number 40 is Zoro vs Dekken, which is another easy win for Zoro. Dekken is way too weak to fight against Zoro. Hell, any of the crew can defeat him, even Usopp. Number 41 is Zoro vs Hody, which is an easy dub for Zoro once again. We already know what happened in this fight, and now that they are fighting in an area where Zoro can breathe, Zoro can demolish Hody Jones, drugged or not. Number 42 is in Punk Hazard, where the fight which are interesting, especially Zoro versus the Yeti brothers along with Frankie. Frankie turns into Monster Point Chopper due to Law switching the Straw Hats. I would still say that Zoro would be able to defeat Monster Point Frankie as Zoro was able to cut through Pika in the very next arc, leading to a double win for Zoro. Number 43 is Zoro vs Caesar Clown, as this is an interesting one since the reason Luffy lost to Caesar the first time was not knowing the extent of Caesar's ability. Zoro would make the same mistake, making him lose just like Luffy. 44 is the second fight with Caesar Clown, which would still happen, but he would be interrupted by Monet, causing Zoro to fight her. We already know Zoro can one-shot Monet, so it's really not a debate and he wins this match easily. Number 55 is Zoro vs Caesar round 3, and Zoro would be able to defeat Caesar, though it would be a little bit of a problem. Zoro would use Tatsumaki along with Haki or use his Pound Phoenix attacks to defeat Caesar. Number 46 is Zoro vs Harujin. Zoro joins the Colosseum tournament defeating random fodders before defeating Harujin. Harujin's not really challenging that much because Luffy with Gear 2 was able to one-shot him. Number 47 is Zoro vs Chinjao, which is an interesting one, as while Zoro will be able to defeat him, it won't be easy, especially if Chinjao restores his head back to normal, but I would say that Zoro would win anyway. Number 48 is Zoro vs Bellamy, which would be another one-shot. Nothing really changes here. Number 49 is Zoro vs Doflamingo, which is one of the most controversial fights in my opinion, as many people think that Zoro can defeat Doffy. This is due to his feats in Wano, but many people forget that Zoro himself confirmed that he grows stronger every arc, along with the fact that Zoro wore his bandana against Pika without him also using a secret technique. Zoro was stronger than Pika, yes, but many people think that Zoro didn't even try, which is kind of false. Now, on to the match. Zoro gets demolished. Doffy has insane durability, able to tank Gear 4 Boundman Luffy without dying, along with maintaining birdcage and fixing his internal body after Law messed him up. Dressrosa Zoro and Wano Zoro are different breeds. Wano Zoro trained a lot more and got a huge increase due to Enma. Dressrosa Zoro is not winning against Doflamingo. Number 50 is Zoro vs Admiral Fujitora. This is an interesting one since they have already clashed in the original, but
It was interrupted.
in this case, however, Fujitora wins as Zoro does not even have the power to overcome Fujitora's gravity. Even if Zoro can cut apart a meteor, if we count One Piece movie Stampede, it was a much stronger Zoro than the current version that we are using, so Fujitora wins. For the whole Cake Island arc, Zoro isn't showing any feats of strength, so we don't know how strong he is. To circumvent this, I'll be using the Wano version of Zoro before he got Enma. Enma was a serious boost in power for Zoro, and without Enma, I can scale Zoro at least somewhat biasly. So the 51st fight is Zoro vs Cracker, which is the losing one since Luffy had to bring out a new form to defeat Cracker. Without Nami's support, Luffy would have lost. Plus, even with Nami's support, Zoro does not have the endurance nor the attack power to damage Cracker enough to defeat him. Cracker was equal to or superior to Doflamingo, and Zoro has a really low chance to win. After the fight with Cracker, in many other fights, Luffy is either mentally suppressed, for example Sanji, or starved, for example fighting against Big Mom's army, Charlotte, Opera, etc. Number 52 is the true fight between Zoro and Big Mom, with the help of Jinbei, Sanji and the distraction of Brook. While he and Jinbei would be able to defeat Prometheus, Zoro loses badly against Big Mom. He would not be able to even challenge her like Gear 4 Luffy can at this point. One of my favorite fights in this video is number 53, Zoro vs Katakuri. This canon fight between Zoro and Katakuri was a battle of stamina, power and haki, something that Zoro does not have yet. If you guys even think for a moment that Zoro has similar endurance to Luffy, then you guys are delusional. Zoro's highest feats of endurance were nothing happened and moving after 20 to 30 broken bones, but it is nothing compared to Luffy's time in Impel Down and Luffy fighting after almost dying while battling Kaido. In Impel Down, Luffy's cells were destroyed constantly for 20 hours while he resisted Magellan's poison. Zoro would literally die from that. Not only that, but Katakuri has advanced observation haki, so none of Zoro's attacks are going to land on him. Luffy needed a new mode to fight against Katakuri, and even then, Luffy barely defeated him, so Zoro does not have a chance. With the Wano arc upon us, number 54, Zoro fights against Kaido, getting one-shotted like Luffy does. After getting Enma and training with it, we get Zoro versus Ulti. Number 55, Zoro defeats us. Not really a conversation actually. Number 56, Zoro finally reaches rooftop and all he faces are losses. He is defeated by Big Mom, he is defeated by Kaido once again and after getting knocked out by Onigashima, and even if I add King of Hell Zoro, Kaido still wins pretty easily. 57 is in Egghead, where Zoro's first battle is against Rob Lucci. Since Zoro has already fought him in canon and won, the same is going to happen here. 58 is Zoro vs S-Bear, just a similar fight that he had in canon with Zoro winning once again. 59 is Zoro vs Kizaru, which is an absolute shit fest. While Zoro can damage Kizaru and has enough speed to at least dodge the initial attacks, Kizaru is just way too fast and strong. Only Luffy can take him, leaving this matchup a loss for Zoro. Number 60 is Zoro vs the 5 Elder Stars. It's a similar shitfest like Zoro vs Kizaru. Even though Zoro has the ability to damage them, he cannot inflict permanent damage, plus with their invulnerability, they cannot be defeated. Sure, Zoro was able to clash somewhat equally with Nazuro, but fighting all the 5 Elder Stars like Luffy is not possible for Zoro. To even disperse the transformations, Zoro would need at least Joy Boy level haki, which he does not have yet. So he loses, and with that, this matchup ends. Zoro has 30 wins, 39 losses, 3 draws, 2 debatable matches and 1 distraction fights over the entire video. While I would like to go through the Elbaf arc, we don't have enough chapters for it. Plus I feel that it's good to end it here as this is Zoro's 60th fight. Hope you guys liked this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please like, share, subscribe and comment your opinions about this matchup. Until then, ta-ta.